Welcome. You found your way to a quiet place tonight, where the walls hum with old secrets, and the silence feels heavier than it should. Take a seat. Don't worry, he's not here yet. Tonight's theme is Psycho Brothers, stories of blood ties that twist. Of siblings who once laughed together before something darker took root. These are the moments when family turns into fear, when the person who should protect you learns to enjoy your panic instead. What you'll hear tonight isn't about ghosts or monsters. It's about the kind of evil that knows your birthday, your favorite song, and the way you breathe when you sleep. These stories don't just unsettle, they crawl under your skin, because they remind you that sometimes horror lives right down the hall. I should warn you, these aren't like the others. Once you've heard them, you'll start noticing small things. A door left slightly open, a whisper you swear came from your brother's old room, a photo that shouldn't still be on the wall. You won't forget these stories. Not tonight. Most people listen and move on, pretending they didn't feel that chill. Don't be one of them. Before we begin, tell me what time is it where you are, and where are you watching from tonight? Drop it in the comments. I want to know who's still awake. You might want to leave a light on. Here are tonight's encounters. The sound that woke me up wasn't loud. It was soft like skin brushing against fabric, or maybe a quiet breath trying not to be heard. At first I thought I was dreaming. My room was dark, but not completely. The faint orange glow from the streetlight outside slipped through the blinds, cutting thin lines across my walls and the foot of my bed. I blinked, trying to shake the fog from my head, and that's when I saw it movement. Slow, deliberate. Someone was sitting in the chair across from me. I didn't move right away. I just stared, trying to understand what I was seeing. My eyes adjusted to the dark, tracing the shape, shoulders, a head, hands resting on knees. It wasn't a shadow. It was a person. My throat tightened before my mind could make sense of it. My breath caught halfway out of my chest, and I froze so completely it hurt. I whispered, "Mom." Nothing. Then the figure leaned forward just slightly, enough for the light to hit his face. It was my brother Ethan. He didn't say a word. He just looked at me, eyes wide open, like he hadn't blinked in hours. His pupils were huge, swallowing the color out of his eyes, and for a second, I wondered if he was sleepwalking, or high again, or both. "Ethan." I tried again, my voice trembling. "What the hell are you doing in here?" He didn't move. For a few seconds, I could only hear my own pulse, hard and uneven in my ears. Then, finally, he stood up slowly, as if he didn't want to startle me. He smiled, and it wasn't a warm smile. It was like he was trying to remember how to do it. "I couldn't sleep," he said softly. "You broke into my room. I just wanted to make sure you were okay." The way he said it didn't sound comforting. It sounded practiced, like he'd been repeating it in his head all night. "Ethan moved back in with us 6 months ago after his incident. That's what my mom called it. An incident, like it was a fender bender, instead of him attacking his roommate with a hammer. She told me he was better now, that the doctors said he just needed to be home for a while. Somewhere safe, somewhere familiar. But every time I looked at him, I could tell something was off. The way he stood too still when people spoke. The way he'd laugh half a second too late. Sometimes I'd catch him watching me from the hallway. He'd say he was spacing out, and I wanted to believe that. I really did. He didn't leave my room right away that night. He just stood there, staring at me while I sat frozen in bed. My phone was on the nightstand, right next to him. I couldn't reach it without getting closer. "Ethan," I said, forcing my voice to sound calm, "you're scaring me. Go back to bed." He nodded slow, mechanical, and walked out. I waited until I heard his door shut before I grabbed my phone and locked my door. I didn't sleep after that. When the morning came, he was already in the kitchen making pancakes like nothing happened. He looked up when I walked in, smiling that same off smile. "You didn't come down last night," he he said, like it was some inside joke. I lied and said I was tired. For the next few days, he acted normal, almost to normal, helping Mom with groceries, mowing the lawn, cleaning the gutters. He was quiet but polite, a perfect son, but I couldn't stop thinking about that night, about the way he'd been sitting there, completely still, just watching me breathe. Then small things started happening. I'd wake up to find my bedroom door unlocked when I knew I'd locked it. My hairbrush moved. My jewelry box open. I told myself I was imagining it, that I was paranoid, until the night I woke up again to that sound. This time, it was my door handle, turning. Slowly, I sat up so fast, the sheets tangled around me. My heart was already pounding before I could even think. The handle clicked, once, twice, then stopped. I whispered, "Ethan, I swear to God." The door creaked open half an inch, and then closed again. I didn't move until dawn. When I finally got up, my door was unlocked. Mom said I was overreacting. "He's trying," she said. "He's on medication. You can't treat him like a criminal forever." "Mom, he was in my room. Maybe you left the door open." I wanted to scream. I wanted to show her how every night I pushed my dresser against the door, how I couldn't sleep without checking every lock twice. But she looked so tired, and part of me knew she was scared too, even if she wouldn't say it. That night, I set up my phone camera on my dresser, facing my bed, just in case. I didn't tell anyone. I woke up around 3 a.m. again, not to a sound, but to a feeling that heavy, sinking sense that someone's eyes were on me. I turned my head toward the corner. Nothing, but I knew. I didn't move until morning, and when I finally checked my phone, my hands were shaking so badly, I could barely type in my passcode. The video was still recording. The first few hours were normal, me turning over, breathing, restless. Then, around 2:46 a.m., my bedroom door opened. "Ethan." He walked in quietly, bare feet on carpet, moving like he knew exactly where every creaky spot was. He walked over to my bed and stood there, just looking down at me. He didn't move for 6 minutes, 6 whole minutes. Then he crouched down, close to my face. His mouth moved, but the audio didn't pick up what he said. He reached out, like he was about to touch my hair, and then stopped. He just froze there, hand trembling, and then walked out again. I couldn't breathe watching it. It felt like my skin didn't fit right anymore. I showed Mom the video. She cried. Then she called his therapist. They said it was disturbing but not violent, that he probably didn't mean any harm, that it could be a side effect of his sleep medication. I couldn't believe it. They made him promise not to enter my room again. He apologized, said he didn't remember any of it, said he just felt drawn to check on me. I started locking my door again anyway. I started sleeping with a knife under my pillow. For a while, things were calm. He kept his distance. Sometimes I'd catch him staring through a reflection in the window or mirror, but he'd look away when I met his eyes. And then one night, Mom had to go out of town for work. It was just the two of us. The house felt wrong without her. Too quiet. I left the TV on low in the living room just to have noise, but it didn't help. Every time the floor creaked upstairs, my stomach twisted. By midnight, I decided to just stay awake. I made coffee, turned on a movie, sat on the couch trying to stay calm. At 2:17 a.m., the power went out. Not a flicker, a total blackout. The sound of silence that followed felt alive, like it was waiting. I grabbed my phone flashlight, my heart racing, and called out, "Ethan." No answer. I listened hard. Somewhere upstairs, floorboards groaned, then slow footsteps. "Ethan." The footsteps stopped. I wanted to call Mom, but part of me didn't want to take my eyes off the stairs. Every instinct told me not to move. Then, something glinted halfway down the hallway, a faint shimmer in the dark. I stepped closer, holding my phone light steady. It was his phone. The flashlight was on, facing upward, and through the camera lens, I saw a live view of me. He was streaming me from somewhere nearby. I bolted to the front door, but it was locked from the inside with a key I didn't have. I spun, scanning the shadows, trying to figure out where he was hiding. That's when I heard breathing, slow, controlled, from behind the couch. I turned the light toward it, and there he was, crouched down, smiling like this was all a game. His eyes were wide, his face pale in the harsh light. "Don't scream," he whispered. "You'll wake Mom." "She's not here," I said, my voice cracking. "I know." He stood up slowly, holding something in his hand. My stomach dropped when I realized it was the key to the front door. "I'm not gonna hurt you," he said softly. "I just want to understand. Understand why you lock your door." I don't remember making the decision to run, but I did. Straight through the kitchen, out the back door, barefoot, no coat, nothing. The air was cold and sharp, my breath coming out in gasps as I sprinted down the driveway. He didn't follow me right away. I could tell because I didn't hear him. I just kept running until I hit the neighbor's porch and started pounding on the door. They called the cops. When they arrived, Ethan was standing in our living room with the lights back on, calm as ever. He told them I was having another panic episode, that I'd been paranoid since his return. The police didn't find any signs of a struggle. They didn't even take him in. They told me to spend the night somewhere else if it makes you feel safer. I moved out the next day. Mom begged me to stay, said Ethan would start treatment again. Said this time it would be different. But the look in his eyes when I left told me otherwise. It wasn't sadness. It was curiosity, like he was watching something unfinished walk away. I found a small apartment 2 towns over. I changed my number, got new locks, slept with the lights on for weeks, and for a while, it worked. I felt okay, until last night. I woke up to my phone buzzing on the nightstand. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but the text preview froze my blood. Asterisk, asterisk, you left your window unlocked again. Asterisk, asterisk, I dropped the phone, my whole body shaking. My apartment is on the 3rd floor. No balcony, no fire escape. I ran to the window locked. Checked every corner. Nothing then. I looked at my reflection in the glass, and for just a second, barely a second, I saw him standing behind me. I spun around, empty, but there was something else. A folded piece of paper on my bed. I didn't remember leaving it there. My hands trembled as I opened it. Only one line written in his handwriting. Asterisk, asterisk, I still can't sleep unless I know you're safe. Asterisk, asterisk, I don't know how he found me. I don't know how long he's been watching. Sometimes, I wake up in the middle of the night and swear I can feel him in the room again. Not moving, not breathing, just watching. The police said I need proof. But I don't need proof. I feel it. He's patient. He always was. And tonight, as I write this, my phone light just flickered. There's a shadow by the door. That shouldn't be there. I can hear him breathing again. He used to sit and watch me sleep. Now, I think he's waiting for me to wake up. The first thing I noticed was the humming, a low, constant vibration beneath my feet that I could feel more than hear. It wasn't coming from the furnace or the pipes. It had rhythm, like a voice echoing against concrete. It was 2:47 a.m., I remember, because I'd been staring at my phone, trying not to think about the noises I'd been hearing all week. Small things at first. Footsteps on the basement stairs when everyone was asleep. The sound of a door creaking open and shutting again, too soft for the wind. Our basement door was at the end of the hallway, white paint peeling, brass knobs scratched from years of use. I'd walked past it hundreds of times without noticing how cold it was, how the air around it always smelled faintly metallic, like rust and damp wood. That night, the humming came from behind that door. At first, I thought it was the water heater, but then I realized it wasn't mechanical. It was human. Someone was talking down there. I should have woken Mom, But ever since Ethan came home, I'd learned to keep things quiet. If she thought I was accusing him of something again, she'd tell me I was making it worse. He'd been out of the hospital for 3 months. The doctors said he was improving, that he just needed time. But every time I looked at him, I saw that same distant stare, the one that didn't blink, didn't react. Still, hearing his voice in the basement at 3 in the morning wasn't new. He'd started spending nights down there, said it helped him think. But the way his tone rose and fell that night, calm, steady, like he was explaining something to someone, made my skin crawl. I crept closer to the basement door. The sound was clearer now. No, she doesn't know. She never does. My breath caught. I pressed my ear against the wood. Silence. Then, softly, she's still asleep. I took a step back. The floor creaked under me, and I froze. The humming stopped. I waited. Nothing. Then the basement light flicked off. Every hair on my arm stood up. The door handle shifted. Once, twice. I backed away, heart hammering so loud it felt like the air itself could hear it. After a few seconds, the handle went still. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my room with the door locked, every creak of the house making my pulse jump by morning. He was in the kitchen making toast, humming softly to himself, like nothing had happened, like I'd dreamed it. The next few days were worse. He barely spoke, barely ate, just stayed in that basement. Mom said it was his space, that I needed to give him privacy. But the noises continued, whispering, the sound of things moving wood, scraping on concrete, metal clinking softly. Then one night, I came home late from work. The house was dark except for the light bleeding out from under the basement door. I could hear him talking again, this time slower, sharper. "Don't interrupt me," he said. "Pause. You don't understand. She has to learn." My stomach twisted. I leaned closer, trying to catch more words. "I won't hurt her," he said softly. "Not unless she makes me." Something inside me snapped. I pushed the door open. The air hit me first, damp and cold, thick with the smell of mold and something else I couldn't name. Not death exactly, but close. The single bulb hanging from the ceiling flickered, throwing shadows across the concrete walls. And there he was, sitting cross-legged on the floor, his back to me, Ethan. He didn't turn around. There was something in front of him, a stack of notebooks. Open, pages covered in tight, uneven handwriting. Beside them were candles, half melted, their wax hardened into dark pools on the floor. "Ethan," I said again, louder this time. He looked over his shoulder slowly, like it took effort. His eyes were wide, pupils dilated, sweat glistening on his forehead. "Hey," he said quietly, smiling faintly. "You shouldn't be down here. What are you doing? Writing? Writing what?" "My confessions." He said it so casually that I almost laughed until I saw what was on the wall. Photos, dozens of them, taped and pinned across the concrete. Pictures of me, sleeping, reading, brushing my hair. Some were zoomed in so close I could see the pores on my face, the shape of my lips. "Ethan," my voice broke. "What is this?" He stood up slowly, eyes never leaving mine. "You don't get it. I'm helping." "Helping what?" "The voices," he whispered. "They told me to protect you. They said if I didn't write it down, bad things would happen. They said, stop." I backed toward the stairs, my hands shaking. "You're scaring me." He smiled wider. "You should be scared. You always should have been." I bolted up the stairs, slamming the door behind me, locked it, called Mom. She didn't answer. I called again. When she finally picked up, her voice was calm, almost annoyed. "What's wrong now?" "Mom, he's down there. He's got pictures of me. He's talking to himself. He's sweetheart. He's on new medication. You're overreacting." "I'm not." "I saw them." She sighed. "Please, don't start again. He's fragile right now." "Fragile," I said, choking back tears. "He's dangerous." She hung up. That night, I dragged my dresser in front of my bedroom door. I left the lights on. I didn't sleep. Around 4 a.m., I heard him again, whispering, not from the basement this time, from the hallway. Soft, slow footsteps stopped right outside my door. Then, a light tapping. Fingernails on wood. Tap, tap, tap. I didn't move, didn't breathe. After a few seconds, he spoke. You read them, didn't you? I pressed my hand over my mouth. I wanted you to understand, he said, voice muffled through the door. I was honest down there, about everything, the things I did, the things I still think about. That's what the confessions are for. Silence. Then you should write yours too. In the morning, the hallway was empty. The basement door was open again. I told myself I wouldn't go down there, but I did. I needed proof, something to show Mom, something she couldn't deny. The air felt colder now, thicker somehow. I turned on my phone flashlight and stepped carefully down the stairs. The smell hit me halfway down, sweat, old wax, and something foul underneath it all. When I reached the floor, I saw the notebooks stacked neatly again, each labeled with a date. I opened one. The first few pages were just rambling words and phrases about purity, protection, cleansing. But halfway through, the writing changed. The letters were darker, pressed deep into the paper, like he'd carved them with the pen. It wasn't about himself anymore. It was about me. She doesn't remember what she said that night, but I do. I heard her laugh. I heard her say it. She deserves what's coming. I flipped through more pages, faster. She keeps locking her door. She thinks it'll help. Tonight, I'll make her see. The last page was dated tomorrow, and it said only one thing. The confession will be complete when she stops breathing. I dropped the notebook. My whole body went cold. That's when I noticed something behind the furnace, a tarp covering a shape too large to ignore. My flashlight trembled as I lifted it. Underneath were tools, knives, rope, my missing scarf, and a small, black recorder. Still blinking red, I pressed play. At first, just static. Then Ethan's voice. .com/steady, like he was reading from scripture. Forgive me. I didn't mean to love her like that, but she wouldn't stop watching. I can feel her eyes when I sleep. I know she knows, so I'll end it the only way I can. The recording clicked off. Footsteps sounded above me. I turned off the flashlight and held my breath. The floorboards creaked. One step, two, then silence. Claire. His voice was soft, almost kind. I know you're down there. I backed into the shadows, pressing against the cold concrete wall. Don't hide, he said. It's worse when you hide. I gripped the edge of a metal pipe, trying to steady my hands. Do you want to hear my last confession? He asked. Something in his tone made me freeze. I'm not the sick one. The words echoed, sharp and hollow. Then the light at the top of the stairs flicked off. I ran. My shoulders slammed into the furnace. Metal clanged. I heard him start down the stairs. Ethan, stop. I screamed. Why? You already read it. I bolted toward the back door, the one that led outside through the storage room. My hands fumbled with the latch, rusted, stiff. His footsteps were faster now, uneven, angry. You shouldn't have gone through my things. The door finally gave. I stumbled out into the freezing air, sprinted barefoot into the yard. The grass was wet and sharp beneath my feet. Behind me, the basement light burst on again. He stood in the doorway, breathing hard, eyes shining too wide. Claire, he shouted, don't you want to finish it? I didn't look back. The police found him 2 hours later, sitting on the basement floor again, hands folded like he'd just finished praying. He told them everything. Said it wasn't about killing me. Said it was purification. That he'd been commanded to confess his truths. Mom still visits him. She says he's calmer now, that the medicine is working. She wants me to forgive him, but I can't, because I know what those confessions really were. Not apologies. Not prayers. They were practiced. Last week, I moved into a new apartment. No basement. No dark corners. No humming in the walls. But 2 nights ago, when I came home from work, there was an envelope taped to my door. No name. No address. Inside was a single piece of paper, ripped from one of his notebooks. In Ethan's handwriting, "You stopped listening too soon," and under it, written in smaller letters, "Confession number 43, she's still breathing." The first time I found one of his journals, I thought it was just weird, creepy, sure, but harmless. I didn't know yet what I was looking at, or what it meant. Now, I wish I'd burned them the second I saw my name on the first page. It started one night around 2 a.m. I woke up to the sound of whispering. At first, I thought it was the TV from Mom's room again. She fell asleep to crime shows every night, but when I checked, her light was off, and the hallway was dark. The whispering was coming from the next room, my brother's room. Ethan had been home for 2 months after getting out of treatment. That's what Mom called it. She never said what for, just that he needed time and that I should be patient. I was patient. I tried, but that night, as I pressed my ear against his door and heard him muttering my name between sentences I couldn't make out, something inside me went cold. I whispered, "Ethan." The whispering stopped immediately. The silence that followed was thick, like the air itself was holding its breath. Then the sound of something sliding across his desk. A drawer shutting. Footsteps. The doorknob turned, and I barely had time to back away before it opened. Ethan stood there, eyes wide, like I'd caught him doing something he couldn't explain. "What are you doing up?" he asked. His voice was calm, too calm. "I heard something," I said. "Were you talking to someone?" He smiled faintly, just thinking out loud. The smell hit me then, that musty, papery scent, like old books left in the rain. He was holding a small notebook, half hidden behind his leg. I didn't say anything. I just nodded and went back to my room. But I couldn't sleep after that. The next morning he was gone when I woke up. His car was in the driveway, but his room was empty. Mom was in the kitchen, humming softly while she made coffee. I told her about the whispering, about how he said my name. She didn't even look up from the pot. "He's probably journaling again," she said. "It's part of his therapy." "Therapy?" She shrugged. They told him to write down his thoughts, get them out of his head. I asked if she'd ever read them. She gave me a sharp look. "That's private, Claire. Don't snoop." I didn't argue, but something about the way she said it, defensive, almost scared, stuck with me. That night, Ethan didn't come home for dinner. Mom said he went for a drive. I waited until she went to bed, then crept into his room. It smelled like him soap, cologne, and that damp paper scent again. The blinds were half shut, and the moonlight cut thin white lines across his desk. That's where I found it. A small black notebook with no title. I shouldn't have opened it. I know that now. But curiosity isn't something you can put back once it starts burning. The first few pages were normal. Thoughts about how the world felt too loud. Sketches of trees, symbols, weird patterns that didn't make sense. But then I saw my name. She doesn't remember. That's good. She still laughs the same way she did that night. If she finds this, I'll have to start over. I froze. My throat went dry. I flipped the page. I can hear her breathing through the wall. Sometimes she talks in her sleep. I wonder if she remembers what she said. I think she does. She's pretending. My hands started shaking. I dropped the book and stepped back, trying to breathe. Every sound in the house suddenly felt louder. The clock ticking, the refrigerator hum, the wind against the windows. I picked it back up, forcing myself to turn one more page. I think I'll tell her soon, but she has to hear it the right way. The truth only works if she's listening. That was the last line. The rest of the pages were blank. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in bed with my door locked, waiting for his car to pull into the driveway. Around 3:40 a.m., headlights swept across my window. A door slammed. Footsteps on the porch. I turned off my lamp and listened. His door opened, closed. Silence. Then something new. A soft, rhythmic tapping against the wall. 3 taps. A pause. Then 2. Over and over. I covered my ears, but I could still feel it through the bed frame. Like he knew I was awake. By morning, he was cheerful again. Made pancakes. Asked how I slept. Fine, I lied. He smiled and said, "Good. You looked tired." That night, I checked his room again while he showered. The journal was gone, but there was a second one now. Red cover, sitting neatly on the desk. I didn't touch it. Not yet. The days after that felt strange. Ethan barely left the house, and when he did, he'd come back with things that didn't make sense. A pack of disposable cameras, a small voice recorder, a box of keys. One afternoon, I caught him standing in the hallway outside my room, holding one of the cameras. He smiled when he saw me. "You left your light on?" "I didn't." "You did." He tilted his head, still smiling. "You always forget things." I shut the door, hard. The lock felt weak under my fingers. A week later, Mom went out of town for work. She kissed my forehead, told me not to worry, that Ethan was doing better. The second her car pulled away, he came out of his room. "Just us now," he said, grinning. I didn't answer. He spent the whole evening in the basement, and I could hear him moving things around down there. Boxers, furniture, maybe. I tried to distract myself. Music, phone, TV, but around midnight, the power went out. The house sank into silence. I grabbed my phone flashlight and crept into the hallway. The air felt cold, thick. The faint smell of burning dust came from the vents. Then I heard it, that low, steady hum again. It was coming from the basement. The door was open a crack, and the light from below flickered like candlelight. I should have run, but I did single quotes T. I went down. The first thing I noticed was the smell, sharp, metallic, mixed with something sweet, like rotting fruit. The second thing was the wall. He'd covered it with photographs. Hundreds of them, all of me, sleeping, eating, brushing my hair, watching TV. Some were zoomed in so close, I could see my eyelashes. My stomach turned. There were notebooks too, not just 2 anymore. At least 10, stacked neatly on a workbench, each one labeled with a date. I opened the one on top. She cried in her sleep last night. She's been leaving her light on again. She looked right at me through the vent. She knows. I flipped faster. The writing grew messier, darker. She keeps pretending. She keeps lying. She needs to confess. I watched her through the crack in the door. She still says his name sometimes. She doesn't deserve to forget. I stopped breathing. Who was his? What name? And then I saw it at the bottom of the last page, written in huge, uneven letters. Tomorrow, 2:15 a.m. She'll remember everything. A floorboard creaked behind me. I turned. Ethan stood at the bottom of the stairs, a candle in his hand. The light flickered across his face, pale, sweaty, eyes wide with excitement. "You weren't supposed to see that yet," he said softly. "What the hell is this?" I said, backing up. He smiled. "My therapy. Therapy doesn't look like this, Ethan. It's working though," he said, voice trembling. "I can feel it. I can see it. You're starting to remember." "Remember what?" He took another step forward. The candle flame stretched toward me like it was reaching. "That night." "What night?" "The one you forgot." I ran for the stairs. He didn't chase me at first, just laughed, a low, breathy sound that made my stomach twist. When I reached the top and slammed the basement door shut, I could hear him still talking through the wood. "You'll remember soon. You'll see what we did." I didn't sleep. I stayed in my room with a chair wedged under the doorknob. every light on. Around 2:10 a.m., I heard movement again. The creak of the basement door. Soft footsteps down the hall. They stopped outside my door. Then a whisper. 2:15. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. After a long minute, the footsteps faded. When Mom got home the next morning, I told her everything. The journals, the photos, the basement. She went pale, but didn't say much. Just told me to stay in my room while she talked to him. They were down there for almost an hour. When she came back up, her face was blank. It's all a misunderstanding, she said quietly. You took things out of context. Mom, enough. Claire. Her voice cracked. He's been through enough. I couldn't believe it. She was protecting him. Again, that night, I packed a bag. But before I left, I went back down one last time, just to see for myself. The photos were gone. The notebooks too. The walls were bare, except for one. A single notebook left open on the workbench. My name on the cover. I picked it up, hands shaking. The pages were filled already, the ink still fresh. My handwriting. But I hadn't written any of it. I found them. I wasn't supposed to, but I did. He said I'd remember. And he was right. I keep seeing his face in the dark, asking me to say it again. I flipped to the last page. Confession number 1. I was there too. I dropped the notebook and backed toward the stairs. My whole body felt cold. Ethan's voice came from the shadows. You see now? He whispered. You finally remembered. I turned, but he wasn't there. The basement light flickered. The candle he'd used was still burning on the floor. Melted almost down to nothing. Something moved behind me. A faint whisper. Not his, but mine. I was there too. The sound came again, clearer, from the recorder sitting on the table. He'd recorded me. Dozens of tapes, and every one of them ended the same way. I remember. It's been 3 weeks since I left that house. I don't know where Ethan is. Mom won't answer my calls. But yesterday, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Just my name written in messy handwriting. Inside was a notebook. Black cover. Familiar smell of damp paper. The first line read, Welcome back, Claire. This time, I'll let you write your side. The first time I realized the door was locked, it was already too late. I was standing in my own living room, holding my phone, listening to the sound of my brother's car idling in the driveway, the low rumble fading into the night. Then came the click. At first I thought it was the wind catching the old latch, but when I tried the handle, it didn't move. I turned it again. Nothing. That sharp, clean click still echoes in my head sometimes. The sound of being sealed inside your own home. Ethan had borrowed my car earlier that day. He'd asked, voice calm, almost polite, like he used to before everything changed. Mom said I should be kind, that he was rebuilding trust. So, I said yes. He was supposed to drop it back off at 7 p.m. He showed up at 9:48. When I opened the door, his smile looked wrong, too wide, too still. He handed me my keys and said, I filled the tank for you. Then, before I could even thank him, he walked inside like it was his house again. He hadn't lived there since, before the hospital. He looked around the living room, eyes darting from the TV, to the curtains, to the framed photos on the shelf. His fingertips brushed each one. You changed things, he said quietly. I tried to sound casual. Yeah, I like it better bright. He nodded slowly, still staring at the walls. You always did hate the dark. I laughed nervously. Yeah, guess I never grew out of that. He looked at me, really looked, and I felt something cold settle under my skin. That same stare I remembered from when we were kids. The one that made me feel like he knew what I was thinking. I miss this place, he said. It feels different though, lighter. He stayed for 20 minutes. We barely talked. Then he said he was leaving, stepped out the front door, and turned back toward me. You should keep the doors locked, he said softly. It's not safe around here. Then the door shut. I heard his car start, and then that click. I didn't realize he'd locked it from the outside until 5 minutes later. I tried the handle. It didn't budge. The deadbolt, which locks from both sides, was turned at first. I told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe the mechanism jammed. Maybe the old frame had swelled in the humidity. I tried the back door. Locked. The sliding door. Locked. All of them. The house felt smaller suddenly. The kind of quiet that hums behind your ears. I called out his name through the front window, even though he'd already driven away. My voice sounded hollow in the empty street. I texted him, "Did you lock my door?" No response. "Ethan, it's not funny. I can't open it." Still nothing. I called, straight to voicemail. By 10:30, I started to panic. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I tried every key I owned. The locks didn't turn. It was like they'd been changed. Then, from the back hallway, I heard movement. A soft thump. I froze. "Hello?" No answer. Just another thump. Slower this time, like a box being dragged across the floor. I turned on every light I passed. The bulbs flickered slightly. Old wiring. And I hated how long the shadows stretched. The sound came again, closer now. Something scraping gently against the wall. I grabbed a kitchen knife. My hands were shaking so badly the metal kept clinking against the counter. "Ethan," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "This isn't funny." Then the sound stopped completely. I stood there for what felt like forever, waiting for it to start again. Waiting to hear footsteps, breathing, anything. But the only thing I heard was a faint tapping from the other side of the basement door. The basement. I never went down there anymore. Not since the night Mom found him sitting at the bottom of the stairs, whispering to himself. The door was closed now, but I could see a thin strip of light at the bottom, like someone had turned on the bulb down there. My mouth went dry. I stepped closer. "Ethan." Tap, tap, tap. The rhythm was strange, uneven, like he wasn't knocking for attention, but to say something. I reached for the knob. It didn't move. Locked too. Then, from the other side, his voice calm, gentle, almost comforting. "Don't open it." I stumbled back so fast, I hit the wall. My brain couldn't process it. He wasn't supposed to be here. I'd watched him leave. I swallowed hard. "Ethan." The tapping stopped. Then, softly, "It's better this way." "What are you talking about? You never listen." "You didn't listen then, either." His voice cracked on that last word, like he was holding something back. Anger, maybe. Or guilt. "I'm calling the police," I said. "No, you won't." The light under the door flickered. "They won't come for you. Not again." Again the word made my stomach twist. My phone buzzed. "Unknown number." I answered immediately. "Who is this?" A pause. Then, "It's me. Ethan." I stared at the basement door, every nerve screaming. "Where are you?" "On my way home," he said. His tone was casual, like nothing was wrong. "You okay?" My hand went numb. "No," I whispered. "You're already here." "What?" He laughed softly. "I just passed the gas station." "Ethan, stop lying. I can hear you. You're in the basement." "I told you, I'm not." His voice lowered. "But don't open that door." The call disconnected. I looked down at the screen. Call failed. Then the lights went out. The entire house plunged into darkness. I could hear my pulse in my ears, fast and uneven. The air felt heavy, damp. I fumbled with my phone flashlight and turned it on, the narrow beam shaking with my hand. When I aimed it at the basement door, I saw something that made my stomach drop. The lock, old brass with a slide latch, was slowly turning on its own. One click, then another dot, then silence. The latch slid back into place, like an invisible hand had moved it, and I realized something awful. It hadn't been locked before. Whatever was down there had just locked itself in. I ran to the front door again, pounding against it. Help! Somebody help me. No one came. The neighborhood was dead quiet. Then my phone buzzed again. Another text from Ethan. Don't open the door, please. You locked me in, Ethan. How are you texting me right now? No reply. Then, seconds later, it's not me. Every instinct told me to run, to hide, but there was nowhere to go. I backed into the corner of the living room, phone still in my hand, knife trembling in the other dot. Then a new sound, a whisper, not through the basement door this time. From the vent above the couch, Claire, my name, drawn out in a rasping voice that didn't sound quite human. I clamped my hand over my mouth, fighting the urge to scream. The vent creaked, and a faint, metallic scratching started, like nails dragging along the inside of the ductwork. I could feel the vibration through the wall. Then, faintly, you should have left it locked. The footsteps started again, but this time they weren't coming from below. They were inside the walls. I ran to the front door and kicked it as hard as I could, again and again. The wood groaned, but didn't break. The footsteps followed the sound, moving toward me up through the vents, the ceiling, crawling closer with each dull thud. I turned the knife toward the sound, my breathing ragged. Stay away from me. Silence. Then, soft laughter. It didn't sound like Ethan. My phone buzzed again. A voicemail. No caller ID. I hit play. Static. Then a faint voice. Mine. It's better this way. I dropped the phone. The light from the screen threw long shadows across the wall. Just enough for me to see movement behind the frosted glass of the front door. A silhouette. Standing perfectly still. I took one step closer. The figure raised its hand and pressed it flat against the glass. A man's hand, pale, thin, familiar. Ethan. But when I looked closer, when the porch light flickered for just a second, I saw that the eyes staring back through the glass weren't his. They were mine. The lock clicked again, this time unlocking. The handle turned slowly. I stumbled back, gripping the knife, breath ragged. Don't come in. Don't. The door creaked open an inch, and cold air spilled inside. Beyond it, darkness. Just an empty porch, no one there. I waited, heart pounding so hard it hurt, until the silence became unbearable. Then, finally, I stepped forward and shut the door. I turned the lock myself, one clean click. The sound echoed in my chest. The police came in the morning, after a neighbor reported someone screaming. They found the doors unlocked. The lights worked again. The house looked normal. But when they opened the basement, they found something that made them call me back to the station. It was a body. Ethan's single quotes, us died decomposed. Weeks old. They said he must have died down there before the night he borrowed my car. That's impossible, though because I saw him. I heard him. He told me to keep the doors locked. And sometimes, when the house goes quiet, too quiet, I still hear that same clean click echo through the hallway. The sound of someone locking me in again. The tape showed up 2 weeks before Christmas. No return address. Just a small brown envelope on my doorstep with my name written in blue ink. My full name. In handwriting I hadn't seen since I was a kid. I almost threw it away. I wish I had. That night, I was sitting on the couch, watching TV, when I finally opened it. Inside was an old VHS tape. No label, just a strip of red ribbon tied around it, like a tiny Christmas bow. I laughed at first, assuming it was one of those nostalgic holiday jokes from someone at work. But when I turned the tape over, I noticed something that made my stomach twist. A single word scratched into the plastic with something sharp. Home. My thumb traced over the letters, and I felt that same cold, metallic fear I used to get as a kid whenever Ethan looked at me for too long without saying anything. Ethan, my brother, the one we buried 9 years ago. I didn't have a VCR anymore, but my mom did. She still lived in the same house we grew up in, the same house where it all happened. I told myself I was just going to drop it off, let her handle it. But that night, I couldn't stop thinking about the handwriting. The way the E curved exactly like his used to. The way the red ribbon looked like something he would have done. A weird, thoughtful touch, like he was trying to make something awful look special. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I'd drive over, show Mom the tape, and finally get rid of the nagging feeling that something wasn't right. When I got there, the house looked smaller, somehow. The paint on the porch was peeling. The air smelled like pine candles and cold dust. Inside, everything was exactly where it always was. Same framed photos, same old clock ticking too loud in the hallway. Mom was in the kitchen making coffee. Her face softened when she saw me, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. "It's early for you," she said. "Something wrong?" I pulled the envelope out of my jacket and slid it onto the table. "What's this?" I didn't answer. She opened it, looked at the tape, then froze. Her fingers trembled just slightly. "Where did you get this?" "It was on my doorstep." She stared at it for a long time. "You shouldn't have brought that here." "Mom, what is it?" She shook her head, eyes darting toward the living room like she was afraid someone might hear. "It's nothing, probably junk." But her voice cracked when she said it. I reached over and picked up the tape. "It says home." I said, "Leave it," she snapped, louder this time. That was when I noticed her hands, small streaks of ash under her nails, like she'd been burning something. I didn't leave, not right away. While she was upstairs, I went into the den and dug through the cabinet under the TV. The VCR was still there, dusty, but working. I didn't even think about what I was doing. I just needed to know. When I slid the tape in, the TV flickered to life, static first. Then the familiar blue-tinted glow of an old home recording, the timestamp, Red Deck 24 2003. Our old living room filled the screen. The Christmas tree stood in the corner, lights blinking unevenly. There were presents under it, half unwrapped. I could hear laughter, my laughter. And then Ethan stepped into frame. He looked older than I remembered. Not 9 years ago older, now older. His hair was longer, his face thinner, but it was him. He looked right into the camera and smiled. "Merry Christmas, Claire." I froze. My name, clear as day. He tilted his head a little, the way he used to when he was joking, except there was no warmth in his eyes this time. Just that same calm, too-wide look that made my skin crawl, even as a kid. "Been a while," he said softly. "You still like surprises?" Then he turned the camera toward the hallway, the one that led to our bedrooms. The footage cut to black. The screen went dark for maybe 10 seconds before a new clip started. The camera was in my old room now, the same bedspread, the same posters. But this wasn't 2003 anymore. There was a phone charger on the nightstand, a half-empty glass of water, things from my current apartment. My breath caught in my throat. He'd been there. I yanked the tape out, and the VCR spattered onto the carpet with a clatter. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped it twice trying to grab it. That's when Mom came running down the stairs. "What did you do?" she shouted. "Mom, it's Ethan. Stop it. He's alive." He filmed. "Don't you say that name in this house," she screamed. Her voice broke completely on the last word. I'd never seen her like that. It took almost an hour to calm her down. We sat at the kitchen table in silence. The clock ticked. The coffee had gone cold. Finally, she spoke. "You remember what happened that Christmas, don't you?" "Of course I do." "No, you remember the story," she said quietly. "The one I told the police. The one I told you to believe." My chest went tight. "What are you talking about?" She stared down at her hands. "You didn't just find him in the basement, Claire. He didn't hang himself." The room went silent except for the hum of the fridge. I could feel the blood draining from my face. "Mom." She looked up at me, eyes glassy. "He was hurting you." I walked in, and I saw his hands on you. You were screaming. I grabbed the first thing I could, the poker from the fireplace, and I hit him. I didn't stop until he stopped moving. I couldn't breathe. I hid what was left, she whispered, in the basement. I told them he'd done it himself. The words barely made sense. I felt dizzy, like the walls were shrinking. You killed him, I said. I saved you. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face on that tape, the way he smiled into the camera like he knew I'd be watching one day. I told myself it had to be fake. Someone had edited it, spliced old footage together. But how would they know what my apartment looked like? At 2 a.m., I gave up pretending to rest. I got in my car and drove home, the tape sitting in the passenger seat beside me like a loaded gun. The roads were empty, the world still. When I got inside, I locked every door and checked every window. Then, against all logic, I put the tape back in. The video picked up where it left off. My bedroom, lit only by the glow of my bedside lamp. This time, I could hear something under the static, a slow, steady breathing. Not from whoever was filming. From someone in the room. The camera turned toward my bed. I wasn't there. Instead, the blankets were pulled halfway off, like someone had been lying there moments before. Then, from behind the camera, Ethan's voice. She's not ready yet. I hit pause and just stared at the frozen image. The hairs on my arms stood straight up. She's not ready yet. That wasn't something an old tape could say by coincidence. That was now. I ejected it and shoved it back in the envelope, heart racing. I didn't care what it meant. I just wanted it out of my house. I stepped out into the freezing night, barefoot, and threw the envelope into the dumpster behind my building. I heard it hit the bottom with a dull thunk. Then I went back upstairs, locked the door, and sat on the couch with every light on until morning. When I woke up, the envelope was sitting on my kitchen counter. The ribbon was gone. I swear to God, I hadn't brought it back in. There was something new written on the tape this time. Watch it again. My phone rang before I could move. Mom's number. When I answered, all I heard was breathing. Mom. The voice that replied wasn't hers. You shouldn't have thrown it away. The line went dead. I called the police. They came, took the tape, asked a bunch of questions I couldn't answer. They promised to review it, told me not to worry. For a few days, things felt normal again. I went to work, slept, tried to convince myself that grief had twisted into something delusional. Then, Detective Mallory called me back. Miss Carter, he said, where did you say you got that tape? It was on my doorstep. There was a long pause on the other end. You sure you didn't make it yourself? What? He sighed. Because the person in that footage looks exactly like you. Not as a kid now. And we couldn't find anyone else in the video. My mouth went dry. That's impossible. Also, he continued, the time's. It's from last week. That night, I drove back to my mom's house. Her car was still in the driveway, but every window was dark. The front door was unlocked. The smell hit me as soon as I stepped inside. That same mix of pine candles and something metallic underneath. The clock in the hallway had stopped at 2:15 a.m. Mom. No answer. I found her in the living room. She was sitting on the couch, staring at the TV. Her face was pale, her eyes glassy and unfocused. The remote hung loosely in her hand. The tape was playing. My own voice filled the room. Merry Christmas, Mom. On the screen, I was sitting beside her, same clothes, same hair, smiling at the camera. I looked down at the real couch. The indentation beside her was still warm. She didn't even blink when I shut off the TV. Mom, I whispered, we have to go. She turned her head slowly toward me, and for a second I thought she was going to cry. Instead, she smiled. The smell of antiseptic always makes my skin crawl. It's too clean, like it's hiding something underneath. I was sitting in that hospital hallway again, staring at the floor tiles. waiting for my name to be called. The hum of fluorescent lights was loud enough to make my teeth ache. I hadn't been back here since Ethan died. That's what they said. Anyway, died like it was simple. Like he hadn't whispered my name right before they sedated him. For the last time, I came because of Mom. She'd been admitted 3 days ago after a fall at home. The nurse said she was stable, but when I asked to see her, they hesitated, just for a second too long. Something about that pause made my stomach twist. The hallway was empty when I got there. No visitors, no nurses. Just the echo of my footsteps and the steady beep of a distant monitor. Mom's room number was 213 when I reached the door. The first thing I noticed was the sound, faint breathing from inside, uneven and wet. "Mom," I called softly. No answer. I pushed the door open. The room was dark, except for the faint glow from the heart monitor. The curtain was half drawn, blocking most of the bed. The air smelled strange, not like disinfectant anymore, but something metallic. "Mom." The breathing stopped. I reached for the light switch. The second it clicked, I saw him. Not Mom. Ethan, sitting in the chair beside her bed. My breath caught in my throat. He looked the same. Same haircut, same hands. His hospital bracelet still on his wrist, the one they said they took off before the cremation. He turned his head toward me slowly, and the corners of his mouth lifted. "Hey, Claire." I stumbled backward so fast, I hit the wall. "You're dead," I said before I could stop myself. His smile didn't fade. I got better. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it. He stood up, too steady, too calm, and stepped closer. "You came to see her too." I couldn't answer. He turned toward the bed and gently pulled the curtain back. Mom was there, pale, motionless, eyes half open. "She looks peaceful, doesn't she?" he said softly. My hands were shaking. "What did you do to her?" He looked genuinely offended. "Nothing. She just doesn't talk much anymore." Then he leaned closer to Mom and whispered something in her ear I couldn't hear. Her eyelids twitched. That's when I saw it, her hand under the blanket, moving slightly, fingers curling like she was trying to reach for something. I took a step forward, but he turned, blocking me. "She's tired," he said. "You should let her rest." I ran. I didn't even look back. I sprinted down the hall toward the nurse's station. It was empty. Every door I passed was closed, the glass dark. When I reached the elevator, I slammed the call button over and over. The light above it flickered weakly, then went out completely. Footsteps echoed behind me. Slow, bare, Claire. His voice was calm, like we were just kids again. "You always run when you're scared." I turned and saw him walking down the hallway toward me. The light overhead flickered with every step he took, casting long shadows across the floor. My voice broke. "You're not real." "Maybe not," he said, smiling, "but I'm still here." The stairwell door at the end of the hall was propped open slightly. I ran for it, my sneakers squeaking against the tile. When I pushed through, the smell hit me, mildew and something rotten beneath it. The lights here were dimmer, flickering in patches. The walls were stained like the paint had soaked up years of damp air. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my breath ragged. The echo of my footsteps mixed with his voice behind me. "You left me, remember?" I didn't look back. "You promised you'd come see me, but you didn't." He was closer now. "You said you'd visit." I hit the ground floor and shoved through the exit door, straight into another hallway. Not the lobby, not even close. The walls were older here, yellowed, the floor uneven. The air felt heavier, warmer somehow, like the ventilation had died years ago. I realized then that this wasn't part of the hospital. I remembered. The lights flickered again, and for a split second I saw something on the walls. Names scratched into the paint. Hundreds of them, some crossed out, and one near the corner, carved deeper than the rest. Ethan Carter. My hand flew to my mouth. The next flicker, of light showed something worse, a smear of brown-red trailing from the corner toward a metal door at the end of the hall. It looked like someone had been dragged. The door itself had a sign, Psychiatric Observation Ward, Restricted Access. I shouldn't have gone in. Every instinct screamed to run, but I had to know. The door opened with a groan, like it hadn't been touched in years. The smell of rust and bleach hit me so hard I gagged. The floor was lined with old wheelchairs and hospital beds stacked against the walls. The lights here were nearly dead, just a faint hum of electricity and the buzzing of a dying fluorescent bulb near the far end. Then I heard it, breathing again, low, wet, coming from one of the rooms. Ethan. No answer. I stepped inside, one hand braced on the wall. My fingers brushed peeling paint. The breathing grew louder, followed by a faint scraping sound, metal against concrete. I turned the corner and froze. There was a figure strapped to a hospital bed in the center of the room. The restraints were old, leather cracked from age. The skin on the person's wrists was raw and bruised, and it was him, Ethan, but this time he wasn't moving. His eyes were wide open, staring at the ceiling. The monitor beside him was still on, showing a flat line. I stumbled back. My brain couldn't process it. There was no way. He was dead? Really dead this time, so who was the one following me? I heard footsteps behind me and spun around. The door was closing on its own. Slowly, the hinge creaking dot. Then a whisper near my ear. I told you, I never left. A hand brushed my shoulder. I screamed and swung the nearest thing I could grab, the metal tray stand, but it hit the floor with a hollow clang. The door slammed shut, plunging the room into darkness. For a moment, all I could hear was breathing, not mine, his, right next to me. Then, the lights flickered back on. The bed was empty. The restraints hung loose. The flat line on the monitor started to pulse. Again, beep, dot beep, dot beep, dot. I ran for the door, slamming my shoulder against it until it burst open. The hallway outside looked different now, brighter, cleaner, like it had shifted back into the normal part of the hospital. 2 nurses were standing at the end, staring at me like I'd lost my mind. "Ma'am, are you okay?" one of them asked. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. They found Mom later that night, alive, unharmed, sleeping peacefully in her bed. When I told them what I'd seen, Ethan, the old ward, the second body, they just looked at each other. "There's no restricted ward here," one nurse said. "That part of the building was demolished in 2015. I didn't believe her until she took me downstairs to show me where the old hallway had been was now just a blank concrete wall. Fresh paint. No doors. No names. But I swear, I could still smell the bleach and rust. They gave me a sedative and kept me overnight for observation. The room was small, white, too quiet. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ethan's face, both of them, around 3 a.m. I woke up to the sound of someone breathing beside my bed. I sat up fast, heart racing. Nothing there. Then I noticed the chair in the corner. It was turned slightly toward the bed now, even though I was sure it had been facing the wall before, and on the small table next to it, a hospital bracelet, old, faded, the name barely visible. Carter, Ethan, when the nurse came in at dawn. I asked if anyone had visited me. She frowned. No one came in all night. I asked about security footage. She said the cameras in that hallway were under maintenance. Typical. Before she left, she paused and looked at my wrist. "You shouldn't pick at that," she said. I looked down. The skin around my wrist was red and sore, like something had been wrapped around it too tight. I started, but she was already gone. Mom was discharged a few days later. We didn't talk about Ethan, not once. But sometimes, when she zones out, her lips move like she's whispering to someone who isn't there. I told myself it's just grief. just trauma. But last night, I woke up to the sound of her humming in the living room, the same lullaby she used to sing to us when we were kids. When I went to check, she wasn't alone. There was a man sitting next to her on the couch. Ethan. His skin was grayish, his eyes dark and hollow. But when he turned toward me, he smiled the same way he always did, calm, patient, like he'd been waiting. "See," Mom whispered, reaching for his hand. "He's better now." I wanted to run, scream, something, but I couldn't move. He stood up slowly, his head tilting just slightly the way it used to when he was trying to understand something. "Don't cry, Claire," he said softly. "You'll make Mom upset." Then he leaned close, his breath cold against my ear. "They said you'd visit. That was 2 nights ago. Mom's fine now. She says she doesn't remember anything, but I keep waking up with marks on my wrists, faint, circular bruises, like restraints, and every time I go near a hospital, the monitors seem to glitch when I walk by. Last night, I heard the same beeping sound from my bedroom, steady, rhythmic dot. When I followed it, it led to my mirror. There was no reflection, just the flicker of a hospital monitor on the other side of the glass, beeping in sync with my heartbeat, and a figure sitting in the chair beside my bed, smiling, waiting. It started with the smell. Not the kind of smell that hits you all at once, but something that creeps in slow, a faint, rotten sweetness that sticks to the back of your throat. At first I thought it was a dead animal under the house. Maybe a rat? The house was old enough for that, but the smell didn't come from the vents or the kitchen drain. It came from the hallway, from the crack under my brother's door. That's how I knew something was wrong again. Ethan had been home for 3 months. Mom said he was better now, that the doctors said he just needed time and space. Time I could give him. Space, not so much. Our house barely fit the 2 of us and Mom, but I'd been trying. I didn't even go near his room anymore. Not after what happened last time. Still, that smell wouldn't go away. Every time I walked down the hallway, it hit stronger, thick and sour, like spoiled milk mixed with iron. "Ethan," I called one night through his door, trying not to sound nervous. "Did something spill in there?" Silence then, after a moment. "Don't worry about it." His voice was low, calm, but something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. By the end of the week, it was unbearable. It seeped into everything, my clothes, my hair, even my pillow. Mom worked nights, so she barely noticed, but I couldn't stand it anymore. So one morning, while Ethan was out on one of his walks, I decided to check. The door was locked. That alone didn't surprise me. He'd started locking it all the time lately. What did surprise me was the sound. I pressed my ear against the wood, and I swear I could hear buzzing, low and steady, like flies. My stomach twisted. Something was definitely dead in there. When Mom got home, I told her about the smell, about the buzzing, about how he wouldn't open the door. She sighed and rubbed her temples like I was giving her a headache. "Claire," she said, "don't start this again." "Mom, I'm not. He's trying," she said, sharper this time. "You know what he's been through. Don't make it harder." That was the end of the conversation. She wouldn't talk about what he'd done, what had sent him away. Not after the incident. I was 13 back then, old enough to remember the blood, but not old enough to understand why she took him back. That night, I woke up to the sound of movement, soft footsteps. Then the sound of a door creaking open, Ethan's door. I froze, barely breathing. Listening, the footsteps came down the hallway, slow and careful, then stopped right outside my room. I stared at the crack under my door. A shadow moved across it. Then, the faintest whisper. "You shouldn't have touched the door." I didn't move, didn't even blink. The floorboards groaned once, and then he walked away. By morning, he was gone again. Mom was asleep, her bedroom door shut. I went to his room. The smell was worse now, thick, warm, sickly sweet. It felt alive. I pressed my ear against the door again. No buzzing this time, just faint, wet sounds. Something shifting, maybe, something breathing. I took a step back, bile rising in my throat. Whatever was in there, it wasn't just rot. That evening, while Mom was getting ready for work, Ethan came home. He was smiling again, that strange, empty smile that never reached his eyes. "Where were you?" I asked. He tilted his head slightly, like he had to think about it. "Walking. You've been gone all day. Needed supplies." "For what?" His smile widened. "Projects." Then he brushed past me and went straight to his room. The door closed. The lock clicked for a moment. I thought I saw something under his sleeve, a dark stain near his wrist, like dried blood. That night, I dreamed about the smell. It filled every room, pouring through the vents, dripping from the ceiling. When I tried to open a window, the glass fogged up from the inside. I turned, and Ethan was standing behind me, pale, grinning. When I woke up, the house was silent, but the smell was stronger. I went into the hallway again, hand shaking as I reached for his door. I didn't knock this time. I just turned the knob. It wasn't locked. The first thing that hit me was the heat. The air inside his room was damp and heavy, almost humid. It made me gag. The curtains were drawn tight, but a single lamp glowed on his desk, and the smell, God, the smell, it was meat. Raw, wet meat. I covered my mouth and took a step inside. The walls were covered in newspaper clippings, photos, and drawings. Strings of yarn ran between them like some kind of sick map. In the center of the floor sat a large, black plastic tub. That's where the smell came from. Flies swarmed above it, their wings glinting in the light. I took one step closer. The air buzzed louder, thicker, like it was vibrating. Inside the tub was something pale. It looked like fabric at first, a sheet, maybe. But when I leaned closer, I saw it wasn't fabric at all. It was skin, patches of it, folded and wet, floating in a dark reddish liquid. I stumbled back so hard I hit the wall. That's when the door slammed shut. I screamed, but it was useless. The sound barely left my throat before he was on me. Ethan grabbed my wrist, forcing me away from the door. His face was calm. "You shouldn't be in here," he said quietly. "What is that?" I choked out. "What did you do?" He looked at the tub, then back at me. "It's a collection." "A collection of what?" "Pieces." His grip tightened. "Of people." I tried to pull away, but he held me there. His hands were warm and slick, and when I looked down, I saw streaks of red on his fingers. My heart felt like it was going to explode. "Ethan, please." He smiled again. "You always said you wanted to understand me." He let go suddenly and walked back to the tub. He knelt beside it, like he was admiring his work. "You remember the dog?" he said softly. "The one that went missing last month." My stomach dropped. "Oh my God." "It was practice," he said, nodding. "I wanted to see if I could keep something from rotting. I almost did." He dipped his hand into the tub, and when he pulled it out, something came with it, something small and pale, dripping dark water. "Don't you see?" he said. "This is art." I ran. I don't even remember how I got out. I just remember the sound of him laughing as I tore down the hall and out the front door. The police came that night. I told them everything. The tub, the smell, the skin. They searched the house for hours and found nothing. No tub, no clippings, no skin. Just a clean, empty room that smelled faintly of bleach. Ethan was gone. Mom swore she didn't know where he was. She cried when they questioned her. Said I was making things up again. Said he was fragile. Said he'd never hurt anyone. They didn't believe me. No one ever does. Weeks passed. The smell faded. Mom pretended everything was fine. She even started smiling again. But I didn't sleep. Every night I dreamed of that tub, of the flies, of the skin, and every morning, When I walked down the hallway, I could swear I still smelled it faint, but there. Then one morning, I woke up to a sound. The sound of his door opening slowly. I froze in bed, staring at the ceiling. Footsteps creaked down the hallway. Then a voice, soft and almost playful. "Claire, you shouldn't have told them." I turned on every light in my room and called the police again. They searched the house. Nothing. No signs of forced entry. No Ethan. But when I went back to my room, the smell was waiting for me. It came from under my bed this time. I got down on my knees and lifted the blanket. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold the flashlight steady. And there it was, a black trash bag. The smell hit instantly. Sharp and wet, I dropped the light, stumbled back. Gagging. When the beam landed on the bag again, I saw something pressed against the plastic from the inside. A HANDSMALL female. Mine. They called it a psychotic break. That was the phrase the doctors used. They said I was hallucinating, that my mind was replaying trauma. But it wasn't trauma, it was him. Ethan had always been clever, too clever. The police said there was no evidence of him ever being in the house again. They didn't see what I saw. They didn't smell what I smelled. Mom visits me sometimes here, says she misses me. Brings flowers that smell too sweet. I can't stand it. She never talks about him, but I can see it in her eyes. That flicker of something she's trying to bury. Sometimes she looks over her shoulder mid-conversation, like she's expecting him to walk in. And sometimes, she swears she still hears buzzing from the vents at night. Last week, I woke up to that smell again. It was faint at first, but by morning, it filled the whole ward. The nurses said it was nothing, that the pipes were old, that maybe something died in the walls. But I know better. Yesterday, a janitor found a small black tub in the basement. He said it looked like paint at first, until he saw what was inside. They sealed off the floor. No one's allowed down there now, but I can smell it through the vents, and at night, when everything is quiet, I can hear the faint sound of buzzing again. Sometimes, I hear him whisper too, that soft, careful voice. You shouldn't have told. The nurses say I'm getting better. That soon, I'll go home. But where would I go? Mom's house. The one where his room still sits empty. They think he's dead. I know he's not, because the smell always finds me. And last night, when I woke up, I saw something hanging from the air vent above my bed. A single strip of pale, folded skin. It was still warm. The first time I saw her, I thought I was looking at a mirror. It was nighttime. Late, the kind of late where the world feels hollow and slow. I'd just parked outside my mom's house, headlights cutting through the fog. That's when I saw someone standing in the upstairs window. For a split second, I thought it was me. Same haircut, same posture, same outline of the hoodie I'd left behind years ago. But it wasn't me. I didn't go inside right away. I sat there in the car, engine idling, watching that figure in the window. She wasn't moving, just standing there, her face hidden by the glare on the glass. When I finally forced myself to get out, the night air was cold enough to sting. The porch light flickered when I reached the steps. Mom hadn't replaced it in years. She said it was good enough. Inside, the house smelled like dust and cleaning spray, the kind that burns your nose. Mom, I called. Her voice floated from the kitchen. You're early. I dropped my bag by the door. Yeah, I figured I'd. And then I froze, because sitting at the table beside her was the girl from the window. She looked up and smiled. For a moment, I thought maybe my brain was short-circuiting, because she looked exactly like me. Same haircut, same color hoodie, even the same chipped nail polish I'd had when I lived here. Mom didn't seem bothered. She just kept stirring her tea. Claire, she said, this is Anna. The girl tilted her head. Hi. I couldn't even respond. Mom must have seen the look on my face because she frowned. Don't be rude. I swallowed hard. Mom, what's going on? She sighed, setting her spoon down. You said you didn't visit enough, so I thought you'd be happy someone's keeping me company. I stared at her. That's not funny. It's not a joke. She reached over and touched Anna's hand gently. She's been wonderful. Anna smiled again. Your mom's the best. I felt something twist in my stomach. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed in my old room. Same faded posters. Same creaky bed, listening to the house settle. Every little sound made me jump. Around 2 a.m., I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow. Careful. They stopped right outside my door. I sat up, heart pounding. Then, a whisper. Are you awake, Anna? Her voice was soft, almost kind, but there was something in it that made my skin crawl. I didn't answer. She giggled quietly, like she knew I was listening. Then, I heard her bare feet pad back down the hall. In the morning, she was already in the kitchen, humming while she made breakfast. Mom smiled like nothing was wrong. She's such a help around the house. Anna looked up and waved. Hope I didn't wake you last night. I stared at her. Why were you outside my door? She blinked innocently. I wasn't. Mom frowned. Claire. She was asleep by 11. I heard her. Maybe you're just tired, Mom said. You work too much. Anna smiled. I think you're just not used to having me around. That smile, it wasn't mine, but it felt like it should be. It was practiced, measured, like she'd studied it. Later that day, I went through her room. I know how that sounds, but I had to see it for myself. It used to be my brother's room. Ethan's the one that stayed locked for years after he died, but now it looked like mine. Same posters, same books, same comforter. Even the little chipped ceramic owl I'd kept on my desk, the one I broke in half when I was 12, sat there, glued back together. My chest went tight. Where did she even get this? Then, I saw something else, on the nightstand, next to the lamp. A photo frame. It was a picture of me and Mom. Except my face was scratched out, and in its place, a cutout of Anna's face glued over it. I took the photo to Mom. My hands were shaking so bad the frame rattled. What is this? I demanded. Mom barely glanced at it. Why are you snooping through her things? Mom, she's replacing me. Don't be ridiculous. Look at it. Mom set her mug down. You've been gone for 3 years, Claire. You only call when you need something. She's here for me. That's not she loves me, Mom said sharply. And she's been more of a daughter than you have lately. I stared at her. I didn't even recognize the woman in front of me. She's not your daughter, I whispered. She's not me. Mom's eyes softened a little, almost pitying. You're jealous. Then she turned and walked away. Anna was standing in the hallway, watching us, that night. I locked my door. I could hear her humming again, somewhere down the hall. The same tune over and over, a lullaby Mom used to sing to me when I was little. It made my skin prickle. Around midnight, the humming stopped. The silence felt thick. Then came the sound of slow, dragging footsteps. They stopped outside my door again, and then, softly, Mom says you should leave. I froze. Mom says I'm enough now. There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing, shallow and even. Don't worry, she whispered. You'll always be part of us. Then the footsteps moved away. By morning, Mom acted like nothing had happened. Anna was gone, running errands. She said, I tried to convince Mom to leave the house, just for a few days. Something's not right with her, I said. You need to get away from here. Mom gave me that same tight smile. She takes care of me. You don't. I felt my throat close. You don't even see what's happening. She turned away. I see perfectly fine, Claire. That's when I noticed the photo on the counter, a new one. It was me, Mom, and Anna. Except this time, I wasn't in the middle. Anna was, and I looked smaller, somehow, distant. I couldn't stay there. I told myself I'd come back later, bring someone, prove what was happening. But when I packed my bag and opened the front door, Anna was standing outside, smiling, going somewhere. I tried to step past her. Move. She didn't. Mom said you were leaving. Yeah, I am. Her eyes were calm, but there was something behind them, something cold. Why? She asked softly. You don't fit here anymore. Then she reached out, brushing her fingers against my jacket. I do, though. I belong here. I shoved her hand away. Stay out of my life. Her smile widened. But it's mine now. When I got to my car, my keys were gone. I tore through my bag, checked the driveway, even went back inside. Nothing. Mom was sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the TV. Have you seen my keys? I asked. She didn't look up. Anna took them. She didn't want you to go? What? She's right, Mom said flatly. You shouldn't leave again. Something in her voice made my stomach drop. It wasn't just tiredness. It was empty, like something had hollowed her out. That night, I pretended to go to bed. I waited until the house went quiet, then crept downstairs to find the keys. I checked drawers, counters, everything. Nothing, until I heard something faint laughter coming from Ethan's old room. Anna's laughter. I moved closer, heart pounding. The door was cracked open. Inside, the lamp was on. Anna was sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by photos. Every one of them was of me. Me as a kid. Me in high school. Me at graduation. But my face was cut out of all of them. She'd glued her face in their place. And in the center of it all was a new photo. A picture of me asleep in my bed from last night. I must have made a noise because she looked up, startled. Why are you doing this? I whispered. She tilted her head, her expression softening like she pitied me. Because she needed you, she said, and you left. That doesn't give you the right. She cried for months, Anna said, her voice trembling slightly. She called your name every night. So I answered. My throat went dry. What? I saw her in the store one day, she continued, smiling faintly. She looked so sad. So I came home with her, and I made her happy again. You're not me. I am now. She stood up, moving toward me slowly. You don't get it, Claire. She doesn't want the real you. She wants the version that stays. Stay away from me. I could make you stay, she whispered. For good. I backed into the wall. Mom, I shouted. No answer. Mom. Anna smiled wider, tilting her head. She's sleeping. I gave her something to help. I ran. She lunged after me, grabbing my arm. Her grip was stronger than I expected, nails digging into my skin. Don't fight it, she hissed. It's easier if you just... I slammed my elbow into her chest and tore free. She fell back, gasping, but her laugh followed me down the hall. You can't leave. I ran to Mom's room. She was in bed, breathing shallowly, her eyes half open. Mom, wake up. Nothing. I shook her, screaming, until she finally stirred. Claire, she mumbled weakly. It's Anna, I said, crying. She's not who you think she is. Please, get up. Mom blinked at me, confused. Anna, I turned. She was standing in the doorway. Her face was calm again, serene. She's upset, Mom, Anna said softly. She's saying things. Mom's gaze flicked between us, me crying, Anna calm. She's lying, I said desperately. She's been taking my things, my pictures. Mom's voice broke. Stop, please, both of you. Anna's hand brushed Mom's shoulder. It's okay, I'll handle it. Mom nodded weakly. Handle it? How? I asked, backing away. Anna smiled. You'll see. I didn't wait. I grabbed my phone and bolted. When I looked back, she was following me, slow, deliberate steps. I made it outside, barefoot, and ran down the driveway. My car was still there, door unlocked, keys hanging from the ignition. But when I turned them, the engine didn't start. I looked up at the house. She was standing in the window again. The same one I'd seen her in that first night, watching me, smiling. That was 2 weeks ago. I left town that night. Got a motel 3 states away. I've tried calling Mom. She doesn't answer anymore. Last night, I checked her social media. There was a new photo. Mom and Anna. Caption, "My beautiful daughters." Except it wasn't old. I could tell by the date, and in the background, just barely visible in the reflection of a picture frame, was someone else. Me, standing in the doorway behind them. But I wasn't there when that photo was taken. I don't know what she did, or how. All I know is that every day since, I get messages from numbers I don't recognize. All photos. All of Anna, wearing my clothes. In my old bed, holding my mother's hand. The last one came an hour ago. It was taken in this motel room. I'm asleep in it, and she's standing beside the bed, smiling. The phone rang at 2:37 a.m. I didn't recognize the number. I almost ignored it. I had learned to, after so many silent calls. But something made me hesitate. My heart started pounding the second I picked up. "Hello," I said, voice shaky. For a moment, there was only silence on the other end. The kind of silence that makes you feel like you're waiting for someone to take a deep breath, to say something they know you don't want to hear. Then came the voice. "I'm outside." My stomach dropped. It wasn't the voice I expected. It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't even distorted. It was a voice I knew. A voice I had heard before. My pulse shot up. "What do you mean, outside?" A laugh. Low. Dark. "I've been outside for a while." The voice paused. "Don't worry. I'm not coming in. I'm just watching. Waiting." I could feel my breath hitching, and I quickly looked out the window, but it was too dark to see anything. No cars, no movement, just the empty street stretching ahead. "Who is this?" I asked, my voice trembling now. "I think you know," the voice whispered. It was him. I shouldn't have been surprised, but somehow, I was, even though I hadn't heard from Aaron in over a year, even though I had moved across the country, I still felt that familiar unease, that gut-deep dread I had lived with for so long. Aaron was the kind of guy who made you feel trapped, even when you were miles away. We had been together for 3 years. 3 years that ended in bruises and broken promises. He had always been charming, convincing, a master at weaving his way into people's lives, only to take what he wanted and leave destruction in his wake. I had learned that the hard way, but even after I moved, after I blocked his number and changed my address, I knew deep down that I hadn't heard the last of him. I had tried to forget the way his hands had gripped me, the way his eyes had darkened in rage, the way he always seemed to know where I was, even when I thought I was safe. And now, here he was again. "I've missed you," he said, his voice smooth. "You're still the same, aren't you? Still pretending like nothing happened." I could feel my skin crawling. My heart was racing in my chest. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "I'm not doing anything," he replied, sounding too calm. "I'm just waiting, watching." I could hear the smile in his voice. It made me sick. I hung up the phone. My hands were shaking so badly that the device slipped out of my grip, clattering to the floor. I stared at it for a long time. I should have called the police. I should have told someone, but I didn't, because I knew deep down that this wasn't the first time he'd done something like this. He had always watched, always lurked, always made me feel like I was being followed, even when I couldn't see him. The phone buzzed again. I picked it up, hesitating. Another message. "I'm still here." It was like a knife twisting in my gut. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. The shadows in my room seemed to stretch further than they should, creeping toward me as though they knew I was vulnerable. Every noise, every creak in the walls, every whisper of wind outside, it all felt like it was him, still watching, still waiting. When morning came, I couldn't tell if I had truly slept or if I had just passed out from exhaustion. The phone had stopped ringing, but I knew that didn't mean he was gone. He had never truly left. I spent the next few days in a daze. I couldn't go anywhere without feeling like I was being watched. My eyes darted to every passing car, every shadow that crossed my path. I didn't know if he was still here, or if it was just my paranoia taking over. But then the phone calls started. Again, the second call came 3 days after the first. Same time, same number, same chilling voice. "Do you miss me?" he asked. "I'm starting to think you're avoiding me." I felt my stomach twist in knots. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I can," he said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "Because you didn't listen before. You didn't take me seriously." I thought I heard movement on the other end of the line, the sound of a door opening. "You thought you were safe, didn't you?" I was too afraid to speak, too afraid to move. I could hear him breathing now, slow and deliberate. Every inhale felt like it was creeping closer, like he was standing right behind me. And then, out of nowhere, I heard a knock at my front door. I dropped the phone. My heart skipped a beat. I didn't dare move. I couldn't. I just sat there, frozen, waiting for the next sound, waiting for him to say something, anything. Another knock. Then a voice, faint, almost distorted, but still familiar. "I know you're in there, Claire." It was Aaron. I scrambled to my feet and grabbed the nearest thing I could find, a lamp. Its cord tangled in my hands, like a lifeline. I crept toward the door, my pulse pounding in my ears, barely breathing. He was out there. I knew it. He was watching me again, waiting. The knocks came again. This time, louder, angrier. "You can't hide from me." I pressed myself against the wall, trying to control my breathing, trying to make myself as quiet as possible. I glanced through the peephole. There was nothing out there. The phone rang again. I didn't even check the caller ID. I knew it was him. The moment I picked up, he spoke, his voice so smooth it made my skin crawl. "You didn't answer the door. I don't know what you want from me," I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady. "I want you to understand," he said, like we were still talking about something casual. "You think I'm just going to leave? I don't forget people like you." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. "I was good to you," he continued, his tone turning almost affectionate. "And you threw me away like I didn't matter. You made me feel like I was nothing." The line went dead. The next day I decided to leave. I couldn't stay in that house another night. I packed a bag, called a cab, and left. I went to a friend's place, somewhere safe. I didn't tell them everything. I didn't want to scare them. But I could still feel the weight of his gaze on me, even miles away. The phone calls stopped for a while, but the unease never left. 2 weeks later, I was sitting on the couch at my friend's house, trying to ignore the rising anxiety, when I received another call. I didn't even check the number this time. I picked up the phone, my heart pounding. "You didn't think I was gone, did you?" Aaron's voice was a whisper. I slammed the phone down and bolted to the door. I didn't look back as I ran out into the street, not caring where I was going, just needing to escape. But when I stopped for a moment to catch my breath, I realized something that sent a chill down my spine. I wasn't alone. The last time I saw Aaron was in the middle of a crowded street, right in front of a cafe. People brushed past us without a second glance, but I could see him clearly. He was standing at the edge of the crowd, watching me with that same twisted smile. I didn't run this time. I couldn't. He didn't move, didn't even blink. "Do you remember when I told you you couldn't hide from me?" he asked, voice louder this time. I meant it. I didn't know what to do. My legs were frozen. "Leave me alone," I shouted. He smiled, a grin that felt like it belonged to someone else. "Make me." And then, just like that, he was gone. The next few days passed in a blur of paranoia. I couldn't focus. I couldn't sleep. Everywhere I went, I felt like I was being watched. The calls stopped, but the feeling didn't. It's been a year now. I've moved to a new city, changed my number, changed everything, but the fear still clings to me, like a shadow that won't let go. Every time my phone rings, I hesitate. Every time I walk down the street, I check over my shoulder. I can still hear his voice, and I know, deep down, I'm not safe, because Aaron doesn't forget.